What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL tier list. I already did my tiers for the NFL defenses going into the 2019 season. And now I'm here today to rank the NFL head coaches, every single head coach, from the best to the worst. I'm going to put them all in tiers, the elite coaches and the ones that are just starting to figure out the game of football in 2019 as a head coach. So let's get right into my tier rankings. But before I rank every single head coach, go and spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this, and comment below your opinion. Do you agree with my rankings? Do you agree with my tiers? And even if you have your own tier rankings, leave them in the comment section below. All right, let's get right into the video. All right, we're here to rank every single head coach going into the 2019 NFL season. And we're going to start off with Kyle Shanahan, as this list suggests. This is going to be very difficult because I think Kyle Shanahan, in terms of a coach, is a really good coach, especially offensively. He is extremely creative. I would argue he has the most creative offense in the NFL on a week-to-week basis. He has great running schemes, an awesome play-action scheme, just overall really knows how to call plays offensively, draw up plays offensively, and can really just beat any defense imaginable. But in terms of his actual success at the NFL level as a head coach, that is where you have to dock him points. Now, it's not really his fault. Jimmy Garoppolo got injured last year. He did great with Nick Mullins as his quarterback, and he hasn't really had a quality team just yet. I believe this season is going to be the breakout year for both Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. So where I rank him, I am going to place him as a B coach right now. And I think that's pretty good praise so far because I think he's great schematically, great as a play caller, but he just needs to see that success before I can place him amongst the really good coaches in the NFL. So I'm going to put him in the B tier. All right, next off, we have Matt LaFleur from the Green Bay Packers, and Matt LaFleur's had very little success or even experience as an offensive coordinator, let alone a head coach. He's a brand new head coach. I wasn't extremely inspired by the hiring from the Green Bay Packers when they decided to go with Matt LaFleur, a guy that was under Sean McVay, under Kyle Shanahan. He has kind of that offense, the same offense that both of these guys sort of run and are used to. And he's going to bring that same sort of approach to the Green Bay Packers as well. And he was hired to get Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers back into the upper echelon of offenses in the NFL. And that's really where his expertise lies. But when he was in Tennessee last season, he didn't have a ton of success with the Titans. At the end of the year, he was producing good running games from Derrick Henry. And at times, he showed good game plans. But overall, he didn't really stand out as an offensive play caller, offensive designer, anything of that nature. So it's tough for me to place him anywhere but D at this moment because we haven't seen any success or any relative. We don't know what's going to happen with him. So maybe he's good, maybe he's not. But just judging off his offensive coordinator experience and his success, he had very little of it before he even got hired by the Green Bay Packers. So I have to put him in the D tier right now. But he could definitely surprise me and do a lot better and be as high as the B tier next season. Jason Garrett is up next, and everybody wants to know where I'm going to rate Jason Garrett because, of course, nicknaming him the Clapper, he is an okay coach. I don't think he's as bad as some people want to say he is. Like, he does a good job motivating the players. He is definitely one of the better player coaches in the league. Like, everybody respects him on the Cowboys. Everybody loves Jason Garrett on the Cowboys. He's not a bad offensive coach overall. He could be better. He understands football in terms of time management, calling timeouts, right situations. He's situationally a pretty good coach, but he just doesn't really do anything expertly well, which is what I really like to see from my top tier coaches. So I'm going to place him in the C tier. He's not one of the worst coaches in the NFL, but he's definitely not one of the best. He could be better. He's had some success with really talented teams, but I would like to see Jason Garrett do better with some of the teams where he doesn't necessarily have the best talent. Like, I've never seen a Jason Garrett team play above their head in terms of above their talent. They've always played to what their talent is, and that speaks to an average coach, in my opinion. Pete Carroll is next on the list. I think you have to put Pete Carroll in the A tier. Not only has he won a Super Bowl, but he's had longevity in both college football and the National Football League. He's a multiple-time national champion, a Super Bowl champion. He's been to the Super Bowl twice. He's had success with Seattle for a number of years. He's built a great kind of, not a dynasty, but a very nice run of teams with the Seahawks, the Legion of Boom. He's drafted very well as kind of co-manager as well. So Pete Carroll, really good defensive coach. Kind of everywhere he goes, he'll bring that defensive staple of that cover 3 scheme or whatever he wants to do with his defense. And he's done that with Seattle. And all of his defenses have really performed above their head, above their talent. He's not the greatest offensive coach, but he's probably the best players coach in the NFL. Everybody loves Pete Carroll. All his players play for him very hard. And he's just a great motivational guy. So overall, Pete Carroll, I have in the A tier. He's not quite Bill Belichick level, which is the BB. So I might as well just put Bill Belichick in that tier by himself. So, but he is underneath him, and he is probably a Hall of Fame coach. I would consider him in that conversation. Next, we have Doug Peterson of the Philadelphia Eagles. I would also place him alongside Pete Carroll as an A-tier coach. Very good coach offensively, relates to the players very well, has creative schemes in terms of offensive football almost every week, and especially when the game is on the line. Doug Peterson is a very ballsy coach. He'll go out there and he'll call plays that nobody really expects him to call. He'll do the thing that is really not expected, but probably the right move in the right scenario. Like, for example, the Philly special in the Super Bowl, doing a number of things like going for it 4th down aggressively. He's a very aggressive head coach, but it often pays off for him, and he just has great trust and great belief in his players, which also shows from his player relationship with his players and with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's gotten the best out of 2 quarterbacks. He's done just an expert job offensively, and he's a really, really good head coach. So I have him at the A tier. John Gruden is intriguing. I am going to place John Gruden out of respect in the B tier. I don't think he's quite an A coach like he used to be in his early days when he was a little bit younger, a little bit more creative, a little bit more savvy, ahead of the time sort of thing, when he was with Oakland, with Tampa Bay, when he won the Super Bowl. But now I think he's still a good head coach. I don't think he's bad. I think his kind of personality maybe overshadows that he is still a good head coach. But we'll have to see this season with a little bit better talent on the Oakland Raiders if he can actually take this step up as being an elite coach once again in the NFL. But John Gruden, he's still probably regarded as a borderline Hall of Fame coach when his career is done, depending on his success in the second year or the second run with the Raiders. So overall, I have him as a B-tier coach. He still has something to prove, but he's shown in his past that he's had success. So I'm going to give him that respect. Sean McVay is definitely an A coach. Sean McVay is one of the best offensive coaches in football. He's extremely good in terms of relating to players, getting the best out of players, motivating his team. He knows how to speak to a team. He knows how to speak to players. He knows how to relate to players. He is really, really good in terms of just being a leader of a locker room, and that's where Sean McVay is really awesome. So Sean McVay is A-level, not only for his offense, but for his personality. And then we have Zach Taylor of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's definitely a D coach. He really hasn't shown anything yet because this is his first season, so I can't place him any higher than that. Plus, he doesn't really have any prior success, or at least much success, where he's been as an offensive coach. Like, I think most people, when he was with the Rams, give credit to Sean McVay for that offense, as they should, not so much to Taylor. So we'll have to see what he's about, but I think you could argue that he is probably the weakest head coach in the league going into the 2019 season. Next up, we have Mike Zimmer. Really, really good defensive coach. I would place him in the B tier. I don't think he's quite an A coach, but he is a B coach. He is one of the best defensive scheme coaches in the NFL. He's done a really good job with the Vikings for the most part throughout his tenure there. He's a pretty good motivator. I wouldn't say he has the strongest personality, which maybe is the difference between an A coach and a B coach. But overall, good coach, had success, knows football very well, doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. He's maybe a little bit conservative, but overall, good coach, really good defensive coach. Mike Vrabel. I am going to place Mike Vrabel in the B tier as well. I'm actually pretty high on Mike Vrabel after his first season as a Tennessee Titans coach. I was very skeptical about him going into the Titans' first season with the team, but I think he has what it takes to be a very good coach in the NFL. He's not afraid to be bold. He's definitely different. He has an expertise on defense, which shows at times against different opponents. And he's got a great personality to be a head coach. And obviously players really like him. And basically everywhere he's gone, at least his position group, his defense, or whatever it may be, has had success. So Mike Vrabel is a B coach with the potential, like Kyle Shanahan, to be an A coach. Most of these B coaches are borderline A coaches if things go the right way. Mike Tomlin is a coach that I think many people will place in the A tier, but to me, he's never been an A coach. He's a B coach for me. I just don't think Mike Tomlin has anything that he does really well as a scheme coach. Like, he's a really good leader of men. He's a really good talker and motivator, and he knows how to lead a team. But even then, he's had some things underneath him go very wrong, like the Antonio Brown situation, Big Ben Roethlisberger having too much power within his team. You could argue that Mike Tomlin has taken a slide as a coach, and you could argue that he is definitely on the hot seat. But because he's won a Super Bowl, because he's had constant success for his team, you have to at least place him in the B tier. He's not in the A tier because he's not that great of a scheme coach in terms of he doesn't really have any offensive schemes because he's a defensive coach. And even in his defense, you don't really see his defense as dominating the NFL. So in that fashion or form, you can't say that Mike Tomlin is a great coach overall. I would place him as a B tier coach. Brian Flores is a brand new head coach who has only had 1 year of a defensive coordinator. I really love Brian Flores. Obviously, I have bias here, but I have to place him as a D coach because we haven't seen any success yet. So I have to say that he's a B coach, even though I do really like him and I think he can be a good coach. But because he only had 1 season as a defensive coordinator with Bill Belichick helping him as a Patriots coach, I can't say he's any better than just the bottom of the league at this point. But I do think he has a lot of potential. I think he has the demeanor, and I do think he has kind of that personality and swagger to be a good head coach, but I'm not sure that it's there quite yet. Plus, he has a really bad roster, so it's not going to make him look any better. Next, we have Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn has had quite a bit of success in the NFL so far in his tenure. He, I think, needs to get away from some of his kind of old school mentalities, which he's brought that cover 3 defense from the Seahawks to Atlanta. And initially it had some success, but over the past couple of seasons, it hasn't had the most success. I would like to see him vary from the Pete Carroll mold a little bit more, but I do have to say that because of his success, he's a B coach. I do like Dan Quinn in terms of he has done some really interesting things. Like, I remember before the season, they had like this military training or something and team bonding sort of thing. So Dan Quinn is an interesting coach who tries some different things to get his team going off of the field, but I'd like to see him do some different things schematically, which I think if he did that, he might be an A coach. But right now, for me, he's not. He's gone to a Super Bowl. He's had some playoff success. He's been to the playoffs a couple of times. But I'd like to see him have more success. I'd also like to see his defenses be more consistent, which we haven't seen. So he's a B coach for me. Ron Rivera is a coach that gets a lot of heat, but I think you have to say because of his success is a B coach. Not an A coach, but a B coach. I think he's a lot like Dan Quinn. I'd like to see him vary schematically from what he's done in the past, but really what he's done has had success, so I can't really blame him too much. Him and Cam Newton, ever since being there, have had on and off seasons of playoff success. He has been to a Super Bowl just like Dan Quinn and has had even more success than Dan Quinn and has been there longer for Carolina. I think he is borderline on the hot seat, though, because he's been there and hasn't really had like a Super Bowl winning team. So I think that Ron Rivera is a great defensive coach, has had a lot of really good defenses, being a defensive player himself in his past. But I do think that he could change some things and be a little bit more forward thinking. That's why he's in the B tier. Sean McDermott, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL, and I would also place him in the B tier despite having a lot of success in his NFL career. He has been to the playoffs once, which with the Bills is saying a lot. I think he's in the same mold as a Kyle Shanahan or Mike Vrabel, two coaches that are kind of up and coming. And like Vrabel, he's a defensive coach. With the Bills last year, he had a top 3 defense. I think he does great things defensively. He's kind of a wizard on that side of the ball like Shanahan is on the offensive side of the ball. And if he got a little bit more help around him in terms of coaching staff and arguably players on the offensive side of the ball, that they might be a really good team going forward. And I think McDermott is going to lead the Bills into being a future dominant team in the AFC East. Jay Gruden, I would say, man, he's had a little bit of success in his career. I don't think he is a good coach. I think he's sort of average. I would probably consider him to be a C coach, maybe a D coach. This is tough. He's between a C and a D. I feel like his teams have more talent than really he's gotten out of them. But over the last couple of years, especially because he's an offensive coach, he hasn't really had a lot of success with the underwhelming offensive talent that they've had. I am going to, for the sake of mixing this up, place him as a D coach because he just hasn't had a lot of success over the last couple of years. He's definitely on the hot seat, and he needs to prove himself. I think he's gone to the playoffs once with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, but maybe this is just a case of not having a lot of good quarterback play over the last couple of seasons. So I'm going to say that Jay Gruden's a D coach because, yeah, he's an offensive coach, but he doesn't have one of the better offenses. He doesn't really touch the defense very much, so you can't really give him credit for that. And he hasn't had a lot of success, so I'm going to place him as a D coach. Andy Reid, this is quite obvious. He's definitely an A coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's one of the best coaches of the last 20 years. He has a great offense everywhere he goes. He is really creative and forward-thinking with his offense. And I think you got to give Andy Reid a ton of success for all the different quarterbacks he's been able to play with and coach and have success with. So Andy Reid, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He is arguably the second best coach in football. Next, we have Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is a really good defensive coach. He has had a ton of long-term success as a defensive coach. From San Francisco to Chicago, he's had a lot of success, but he's never been a head coach. I'm going to place him as a D-level coach because we've never seen him be a head coach. Even though as a coordinator, I would say he's A-level. As a head coach, we've never seen it, so I can't trust it. That's where he comes in as a D coach. Bruce Arians, I would say this is tough because he's been off his game for a year. Ooh, this is tough. I think he's arguably a head coach, A-level head coach. But because he hasn't been around, I have to place him as a B coach. He's had a lot of success as a Cardinals coach and as a Colts coach in the past. He hasn't ever gone to a Super Bowl, but he's had some deep playoff runs, and he's been really good in terms of getting a lot out of limited talent. But I have to say that because he's taken a year off football, I would have to place him as a B coach. He is a quarterback whisperer, and I don't think he has a lot of time left. So I'm going to place him as a B coach. Adam Gase, he is certainly a D coach. I don't know. He might be a C coach, honestly, because he's had success with offenses. He started with the Broncos, with Peyton Manning. That's kind of where he gained his rep, with the Broncos and Peyton Manning. And he was the offensive coordinator for that 2013 team that had a ton of success. In Miami, he did make the playoffs. So with not a very good quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, average quarterback, defenses haven't been good. Like, that's the thing with Adam Gase. He's never really been surrounded by a roster of a ton of talent. And now he's taking on both the general manager role and a head coach as the Jets. I'm going to say he's a C coach. I think he's average, has some good offensive schemes, has some creative things he does there, but I don't think he's an overall awesome coach. So I'm going to place him as a C coach. He is also the funniest looking coach in the NFL. So that does kind of hurt his stock. Freddie Kitchens, he is an unproven coach going into the D category. He has some things he does offensively, obviously, as an offensive coordinator last year, that I do really like. I think he is one of these coaches that has potential because I don't think he's afraid to be bold. I do sort of question whether he can handle the personalities of what the Cleveland Browns are going to throw at him. And I don't know if he's a well-rounded enough coach to be a guy that's going to be an elite coach. But I do think he can be at least an okay coach in this league, at least a C-level coach. I do question whether this signing or this hiring has too much to do with Baker Mayfield really liking him, more so than him being head coach quality. So I'm going to place him in the D category. Pat Shurmur, he's a D-level coach. Even though I think Pat Shurmur is a pretty good offensive coordinator, I don't think he has really shown that he's made out to be a head coach yet. And because the Giants are pretty bad, I don't think it's going to really help that they are pretty bad. Bill O'Brien, he has shown some success in the NFL. I think he's kind of a lot like Mike Vrabel's kind of like a younger Bill O'Brien to me. And I don't know if that's because they've coached together a lot, but he's a B-level coach. He's had success. He's brought multiple teams to the playoffs, even with bad quarterbacks, and he's had some really good defenses. Now, where I do think that he could improve is just varying his offense. He's known as an offensive coach, and that's kind of where he made his name as the Patriots offensive coordinator. But he hasn't really proven that his offenses are anything but basic for the most part and reliant a lot on Deshaun Watson at this point. But defensively, he has done very well. He's gotten a lot of talent, and he's a really good manager of the game. He knows game situations. He's very good in terms of putting his team in position to win. So that's why I place him in the B tier. Kliff Kingsbury, the most controversial coach in the NFL. You have to place him in the D tier. Not only is he a guy that's new, but he's completely unproven. Even with Patrick Mahomes in college, this guy had a losing record. He may look like Sean McVay, but the question is he Sean McVay? That's why I place him at the D tier. Maybe he does some crazy cool things on offense, but I can't say that he's going to do anything overly special. Next, we have Doug Marrone of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Marrone, I know that a guy like Bill Belichick has a ton of respect for a guy like Doug Marrone, but I don't know if he's a great coach. I mean, you have so much talent on the Jacksonville Jaguars that you should be doing better than whatever they did last year. Was it 4-12? His defenses and his style is a lot like Tom Coughlin, where it's very regimented. It's very old school. It's very, on the ball, so to speak. And it's old school. That's the best way to describe it. I would say he's a C-level coach. He's okay. I don't think he's ever going to be anything better than okay. And I personally don't really know where his real flair or indent lies on the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's supposed to be an offensive line coach, but really the Jaguars' offensive line hasn't been that great. So I can't say that he's been successful there. Overall, he's a C-level coach. Maybe even a D level, but I'm going to leave him at C because I do have respect for the opinions of some that do like him. Sean Payton. He is definitely an A coach. He is arguably the best offensive coach in the league. I would personally say he is the best offensive coach in the league. He's been it the longest at the very least, and he is probably the best offensive coach of the last 20 years. He's really, really good in terms of being bold, being a great personality, being a guy, a leader of a locker room and a team. He is everything that I would want in a coach if Bill Belichick wasn't my team's head coach. So Sean Payton is an A-level coach, and I would say he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia is, at this point, this is tough. I would say at this point, you have to say he's D-level. I mean, he regressed with the Detroit Lions, even though the Detroit Lions were not a very talented team. He didn't prove that he could elevate this team. And a lot of things coming out of Detroit is that a lot of people don't like him and that he's rubbing them the wrong way. I do think Matt Patricia is better than a D-level coach, but from what he's shown so far, I can't say that he's better than that. So, yeah, it's kind of my opinion intersecting with the facts, which if I'm going to sway one way or the other, I sway with the facts. Even though I think Patricia did some good things with the defense last year, and I think he will do good things with the defense in 2019, I can't say that that is definitely going to happen. Anthony Lynn had a really good season last year with the Chargers. I would say he's a C-level coach. He might be better than a C-level, and maybe I need to see one more season of success with the Chargers before I give him that nod. But I do really like what he does in terms of his run game, in terms of some of the things he does creatively with running backs, which is his background. He does some good things offensively, and he seems to be a good leader for the team. He's relatively quiet, and really the playoffs seem to be too big for him. But we'll see in this season, this year, if he can really not bounce back, because he was arguably the coach of the year last year, but have another good season in 2019 with the Chargers. Frank Reich. Frank Reich seemed to be the mastermind behind, or at least him and Doug Peterson, the masterminds behind the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And I think he's a borderline A coach, but I would have to place him in the B tier. I just don't think he's proven enough quite yet to be placed in the A tier, but he's one of my favorite up-and-coming coaches in the NFL. Of course, being a former quarterback, he knows quarterbacks very well. He helped out Andrew Luck a ton this year. He gave him a lot better options in terms of offense, and he seems to be a good leader off the field. So I'm going to place him as a high-level B-tier coach that might be an A-tier coach this year. And John Harbaugh, I have a ton of success for John Harbaugh, or not success, but respect for John Harbaugh. And he's had a ton of success in the NFL. Super Bowl winning head coach, really good special teams coach. That's where he got started with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's always had a good defense, which I think is partly at least him. He manages situations very well. He's not an offensive coach, but he has a great demeanor. And that's why I place him as an A coach, as the last coach and the last A coach. So those are my rankings. Of course, we start off with the BB tier, which is the Bill Belichick tier, which only has Bill Belichick. The A level is Pete Carroll, Doug Peterson, Sean McVay, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and John Harbaugh. The B level is Kyle Shanahan, John Gruden, Zimmer, Vrabel, Tomlin, Dan Quinn, Ron Rivera, Sean McDermott, Bruce Arians, Bill O'Brien, Frank Reich. And then C tier, Jason Garrett, Adam Gase, Doug Marrone, Anthony Lynn. And then the D tier, basically all the new coaches, plus Gruden, not John, but his brother, And who else do we have here? Matt Patricia and Pat Shurmur. So those are my coach tiers for the 2019 season. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. We'll see you next video. Peace.